What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Lately, I've been giving a lot of thought to the different settings that I played in throughout my role-playing games. I played in the deserts of Athos. I played in the Sword Coast region of Faerun. I played in Greyhawk. I played in Rifts. I played in Middle-earth. I played in the Outer Rim of Star Wars. With all of these amazing different settings and the vast amount of media that they occupy and the creative minds that have put those together, it's interesting to me that the best setting, the most memorable game that I ever played in, was one that was created on a simple piece of graph paper by a kid a couple years older than me, lived across the street, and just wanted me to come over for a game. So, with all of these pre-made worlds that are available to us, why would we ever want to create our own setting? I'll tell you. First off, narrative authority. Whenever you're playing in somebody else's sandbox, there's always that tendency for others who have consumed that same setting to have very strong preconceived notions about the way it should be or the way that things are in their mind. Whereas if it's your own creation, they're going to give you a lot more narrative authority, and they're going to be okay with you calling the shots a little bit more tightly. And as a GM, that's going to help make your world more cohesive. Also, whenever you are building your own world versus playing in another setting, you are going to be able to enjoy the creation process. You can have the game within the game. Some of the most fun that I have had in my GMing experience has been in preparing areas for my players to explore. So today in my video, I am going to show you how to easily create your own setting, your own world, to do the same for your players. Without any further ado, let's get into it. When building your own setting, it's important to keep these things in mind. First off, you want to start small. Think of a hub community, maybe 3 to 5 key NPCs, give them names, give them personalities, and then think about what they do in the community. What is their role in the community? Come up with a social hub, someplace that the players can find jobs. That could be a guild, it could be a tavern, it could be a church, whatever is going to go with your players. Find a conflict. This is a reason for them to leave the community. Maybe it's a threat to that community. Maybe there's an impending danger that they need to go out and prevent from happening. Or maybe it's just the possibility to leave the doldrums of the boring community in which they have grown up. Think about the economic conditions in that community. What is day-to-day life like there? What drives the economy? Why do the people do what they do? Think about law and order. Think about how laws are enforced and who are the power centers in that community. Think about the government structure. Is it ran by a mayor? Or maybe it's a burgomaster. Maybe it's a king. After you've done that, come up with 3 key points of interest. These are like rides at a theme park. How do they relate back to the hub community and the NPCs there? Maybe there's an old abandoned graveyard that's got rumors to be haunted, or perhaps there's some bandits that live just out beyond town and they've been threatening travelers and creating problems for the local economy because nobody wants to bring their goods there anymore. Maybe there's rumors of a dragon in the mountains to the north. Or perhaps there's an old abandoned ruin that has a wizard that is rumored to have taken up residence there. Whatever it is, come up with a few of these, and then don't flesh them out completely. Come up with some simple ideas, and then let your players tell you by their actions what of your ideas interests them. When they pick a spot on the map, they're casting a vote to tell you what type of a game that they want to play. That's going to make your job easier. Now think of a rival community. This is a regional power that has perhaps a similar role to the hub community that you've created. Think about why they are a rival to the hub community. Is the rivalry friendly or is it tense? Then create another 1 to 3 NPCs that connect the two and act as a bridge between the two communities and give the players a reason to interact with that rival community. Leave some blank spaces. Don't fill it all in. Leave room to explore and to flesh out other stories. Creating some random encounter tables for the region will help fill the gaps as well. A tip for that is to use 80% of the same content on all your random encounters, and then fill 20% of each of those tables with encounters that are unique to the area. When the players know that there's a greater likelihood that they're going to run into a band of goblins in a certain region, whereas in another region they're more likely to see an owlbear, that's going to let them know that the world has rules and that the world functions in a somewhat logical way. Make the names on the map mean something. One way that I do this is when I am creating different regions of my world, I will select an analogous culture from the real world, and then I will use random name generators for places that you can find easily online, and I use that for the various regions. This keeps a consistency to the region, and it makes sure to have an actual meaningful reason for the names. Think about the terrain and the history of the world in your map. Think about how a town nestled between some mountains and then protected by a river on another side might have developed differently than a town that's out on the plains and open to trade and more likely to have been visited by other different communities. Think about how that would shape those different communities. Use logic in your creation. If you have a tropical area next to a frozen tundra, there should be a reason. Create hooks, not adventures. If you spend a lot of time creating detailed adventures with very specific points that your players need to hit, you're only going to end up disappointing yourself and frustrating your players. By creating hooks, you are essentially throwing out some bait and seeing if your players take it, but you're not wasting a lot of time on things that your players will most likely either not enjoy or not even pursue. Steal ideas or even locations. That first campaign that I played across the street with my friend, I had no idea at the time, but several of the ideas that he threw out there were actually pieces of adventures from the classics. This was the early 80s, so these modules were not easily available for anybody to know they existed. So whenever he threw out elements of Castle Greyhawk or the Barrier Peaks or even Karatur, I was amazed. I thought, this guy's incredibly creative. And you can do the same. It doesn't even have to be modules. It could be any sort of literature or media. Think of some cool ideas that you've seen in a movie or an anime or a TV show or a book or a comic, and then insert that into your world. Change some names, make the story fit your world logic, and go from there. Don't do it all at once. When you're building your world, if it stops being fun, put it to the side. This is a game, and games are supposed to be fun. If it becomes a job, you're not going to enjoy it, and you're going to put too much pressure on your players to enjoy it to make up for your sacrifice. Learn from your mistakes. I mentioned earlier having a frozen tundra next to a tropical area. That's because I did that in one of my worlds. I knew I wanted to have a frozen lake, and I accidentally put it too close to some tropical forests. Well, I had to come up with a reason that made sense. And I did. I decided that there was an ancient white dragon who had hibernated underneath the lake, and the lake had frozen over as a result, and all of the ground around it had become a frozen wasteland. So now, even though on the map without the story, it makes no sense to have the frozen lake only a matter of 50 miles away from the jungle, within the story now, it makes a lot of sense. And it also makes the players want to know more about that story, and it became one of the favorite elements of that map. Use your players' ideas to flesh out your world. Sometimes your players will make an assumption about your world that you hadn't even thought of, but a lot of times their assumptions are better than what you've came up with. It's okay to roll with it. That allows them to feel like they have accomplished something in cleverly figuring out your world, and it allows you to provide the type of game that your players are wanting. You don't want to do it too often because then your game becomes predictable, but whenever you use it cleverly, this can really make your world a collaborative effort between you and your players. So these two pieces of graph paper right here are all that you need to start a campaign. A small dungeon and a single page of world that you can have your players live their adventures through. This is enough to get you through several sessions, maybe even months of play without a whole lot of extra building. Oh, you're probably going to want to build some more dungeons, and you'll most likely want to come up with some stories to fill in your map spaces. But your players are going to do a lot of that legwork for you just by living in your world. Now, this map is one that I had created a few years ago during the pandemic. And a couple of months ago, I updated it to this version. I did so using some techniques that I found in J.P. Couvert's YouTube channel. In that channel, he taught me how to properly draw some different elements of the map in a manner that looked much more professional than my previous work. But before I even did that, I had taken the time to put all of my thoughts into paper and create a somewhat cohesive story for the world that I had created. This document is a little over 20 pages. It has that original map that I had talked about at the beginning of the video in it. And I go through and I give some history and descriptions of the different sections of the world, how they interact with each other, and what drives the different areas of the world. I go into the specifics of the different communities in the world. And each one of these is just a few lines of text, nothing too detailed. But it gives you a starting point for any questions that your players might have. I have some different powerful organizations that drive the different machinations of the world. I created a pantheon so that there was a logical set of deities for the world. I have some adventure seeds, some ideas that I thought might spark the interest of my players, and turns out they did. And there's enough here, just with a paragraph each, to come up with several sessions of gameplay. Then I actually added some notes about some pre-published material that would easily be able to be fit into my Isle of Avelonia setting. And at the end, I created some random encounter tables for different types of terrain, using some of the classics that you would be used to seeing in different types of role-playing experiences. That's how I do it. I'd love to hear how you do it. If you have any ideas about better world building that you'd like to share with the community, I'd love to hear about it in the comments section. If you'd like the video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like a copy of my PDF of the Isle of Avelonia, shoot me an email right around here, this address, and I will try to check that email and get you a copy sent. So that's it. That is my technique for world building. It's simple, it's easy, and it's effective. Until next time, this has been Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Good gaming, and God bless.